Davis from Entwined Fiber and Wire in New Braunfels, Texas.
Fiber and wire and feathers and other things too.
Yes, I call this my story hat because I make the alpaca hats out of my own animals. I felt like it would be wrong to make it out of one. So the base of it is my first alpaca, and then the rest is all the other alpacas and llamas, and then a little piece of each of the rabbits that is woven there, and then these are my birds. And this is my dog. So it's a family hat.
It is a family hat, but that's a really interesting thing to do because fiber is not any one thing, and sometimes there's a lot of mixing going on.
You're not kidding.
Yeah, tell me about how you do that.
So at our farm, we have alpacas and llamas, Angora rabbits, a couple of Angora mixed goats, and I use their fiber for wet felting. I needle felt sometimes. I do a lot of weaving and a lot of spinning. So from there, I make all the stuff that I'm going to do. And then I teach classes.
And I have to, just because they're waving so beautifully in the wind, tell me what kind of animal what kind of bird those feathers
come from. Oh, these are Sebastopol geese.
Oh, those are the pretty ones with the curl.
The curly feathers. Yes.
Very interesting. They look like this little ball of bubbles, I think.
Yeah, they do. They do. They're funny when they walk because the little feathers will, like in the wind, they'll just go everywhere.
That is delightful. Feathers are something that adds such an interesting texture, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
And there's this little world in every feather, so it's not just the one thing you get to. When you get close up on a feather, it's a whole different thing, isn't it?
Yeah, when I'm out in the pasture, I'm all excited when I find one that, they shed off that was really nice. But I get disappointed when I look in the bird nests and see them up in the bird nests. And I was like, you're not supposed to take those.
So the second or fourth, or I don't know of the interesting things in that hat, but one of them is the dog. Tell me about the dog.
Yeah, so I had a Great Pyrenees, and of course they shed a lot of hair, so I spun a bunch of her hair, which I've used a lot in different projects, but mostly for stitching for my hat or whatever, and I've used it on white hats and things like that. But
so if you have a dog that has a long curly hair, is it more difficult, or do you want the long straight hair?
No, there's two kinds of dog hair. The dog has to have a double coat. So if you have a dog like a Great Pyr that has the shorter coat and then the smoother coat, it's the coarse coat that kind of sheds off that's in between. So it has to be a dog that has a double coat. Like you can't spin a poodle, for example. It won't stay spun as well because their hair is not coarse, not the right fiber. Anyway, the only problem with dog hair when you spin it, though, is if you get it wet, it will smell like wet dog. So you don't really want to make garments out of dog hair.
Or a dog hat might be kind of problematic.
Yeah, I do have a dog hat. I did make one, yes.
But if it gets wet,
it'll smell like.
Interesting. Okay, now tell me about the rabbit.
So the rabbits, I have Angora rabbits. And so with them, I hand spin. I have multiple spinning wheels. And then I wove a little piece of each of the rabbits into this hat so that I'll have a memory of all of the rabbits. And then these hats are also made from the rabbits. So the blue isn't the rabbit. I have to use another yarn to make it have a little bit of stretch and give because rabbit doesn't have memory. So if you'll see, this gray one is rabbit, the white one is rabbit, the blue one is rabbit. I don't know if I have any others.
Wonderfully soft.
Yes, really soft and really warm.
Yeah, I'm thinking that would have been a great. My mom had breast cancer and she lost all her hair, and so hats became a huge thing for her.
Yes.
But the warmth of the hat was what you really needed. A lot of people think it's just for hair loss, but
it's also the softness too against your head, especially if you don't have hair between your head and the hat. So
yes, it makes a huge difference. I'm just looking how wonderfully soft that looks.
Yeah,
fantastic. Okay, so wait, how many animals do you have? Should I ask, or is that
no?
Like in my household, that's like divorce
say,
type question,
but
marital
I have
issue.
No idea. People ask me that all the time. How many do you have? And I was like, I don't know. I'd have to do them by sets,
More than 100 or less than 100? Oh boy, the fact that you have to think about it is
probably
an interesting
less.
answer.
But like we have 6 goats, 8 alpaca, 3 llama, 4 geese, 2 ducks, 2 dozen or so chickens, some barn cats, 2 house cats, 4 dogs, a little house pig, 2 snakes, 2 geckos, 1 bearded dragon.
You got the whole food chain going on at your house.
Yes.
So do you find yourself saying, oh, I'd like to do that different animal that I've never done before, and collecting more animals? Or
no, I think my husband and I have kind of settled on what we've got. We started this whole thing because of my daughter, who's a 4-H kid. And so she started, it's kind of a funny story. Everybody asks me, how do we get our farm? And it's like, well, we started as a 4-H kid. And the first project she did was a meat goat. What we didn't know, and she didn't know, is the top 3 meat goats don't come home from the show. And she was number 4. So she came out of the show and she said, and that's the last show this goat will ever do. She was afraid she'd be in the top 3 and then Nike wouldn't come home with us. So after that, we switched to the little mini goats, because the little mini goats are pet goats and milk goats.
Now,
so,
not Pygora, yes?
yeah,
or,
the Nigerian dwarfs.
Okay.
And the Nigerian dwarfs are shown as pet goats and milk goats, and so they come home. And so then we needed llamas, because we lived in El Paso, and we needed something to protect them from coyotes. And then 1 llama became 2, 2 became 3, 3 became 4, and then I was like, I entered a project in the fair, and I said, if I do well at the fair, I'll reward myself by convincing my husband to let me get an alpaca. And I got like a tricolor ribbon at the fair. And so I was like, honey, can I get an alpaca? And he said, only if I get a Blu-ray player, because tomorrow's my birthday. So I said, load him up, because the Blu-ray player was already in my car. And this is Blu-ray.
That's your trade.
That was, yes. So then I went from there, I went to the Angora rabbits, and yeah, the rest, as they say, is history.
Did you make your lovely vest?
I did. This is in the class that I'm doing this afternoon. We're doing a hat from this class, from this vest pattern. Same triangle loom that you use. Oh, I can show you the triangle loom, because I have it set up for the class this afternoon. So this is what it will look like and then it's going to turn into a hat.
Yeah, now, not everybody always understands how it works at fiber fairs and festivals. You are teaching a class and you are a vendor. That's a lot to do.
Yep.
But in a way, that's kind of how you spread the word, right? It's
Yes.
your evangelical moment, right?
Exactly. And sometimes I do the felted hat class, but that's like a 2-day class. And so we decided with the wind and everything else that probably we shouldn't try to do that outdoors.
I'm going to ask you 2 questions. One of them is, what is your favorite thing to make in terms of, do you like to knit? Do you like to crochet? Do you like to weave?
I think my favorite thing is the hat, the felted hats. It's kind of an interesting process. When I took the class myself, I'm a science teacher by nature, so I kept laughing and saying, I don't understand how this is going to become cloth. It doesn't make any sense. So I had to look up the science of why it becomes cloth. But making the felted hat and turning fibers into cloth is just an amazing thing to me. The only thing I don't like about it is when I'm blocking it, the hardest part of all is getting the brim to go down. And so sometimes I'll just sit there and I'll go, okay, it's never going to go down, it's never going to go flat, it's never going to, and then it does, and then I'm like, okay. But everything else of the whole process I love. It's just getting that brim flat that's just exhausting.
Okay, now what is your favorite thing to teach?
Oh, wow. I'd say it's probably the Viking weave. This is Viking weave. This is what I'm doing Sunday. That one's a really cool one. My heritage is Danish, so I've been to Denmark and I've seen the Viking Museum, and my grandfather's house is actually in a museum. The whole house is in a museum. And so it was kind of cool for me, with my daughter, to go walk in my grandfather's house and see a spinning wheel and a warping mill and a swift, and I was like, oh my gosh, like chills, right? But the Viking weave kind of feels like I'm going home a little bit. I've never lived in Denmark, but it's kind of my family heritage, so I like that one.
And it could be anyone. You could go to multiple places and have, because we were learning about the Herdwick sheep, and that's said to be a Viking influence. There's everything across that whole trail where the Vikings had a huge influence.
Yeah.
But the sheep seem to be a heavy part of that, because they can fit on a boat, right?
Yeah.
And you drop them off here and there, and sometimes they make it, and sometimes they don't. But of all the things that they've done, they always brought animals with them, it seems, and dropped them off and picked them up. And so we do have quite a few different influences from the Vikings in our fiber. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Lovely. It is pretty cool. Well, we're going to pick you up on Sunday, I think.
Alrighty.
Yes, that would be wonderful.
Then I'll be dressed in my Viking garb.
Yes. Now, in the meantime, I need to ask you, if people want to find you and your art, where do they go?
Entwined Fiber and Wire Facebook group. They can go to my Entwined Fiber and Wire .com is my website. I don't really update it very often. It's easier to catch me through Facebook or email me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.